Hello, welcome to Secret Zone. Subscribe and turn on notifications for stories you won't forget. Imagine thinking your life is perfect, that everything you be worked for, everything you've built, is safe and secure, only to discover that the people you trusted the most have been hiding a secret that could destroy it all. Garrett was a man who had everything a thriving tech consulting firm he had built from scratch. A beautiful 2-story home with sleek glass windows and natural stone finishes, and a marriage he believed was solid. He thought he had chosen well in both business and life. His wife, Melissa, was vibrant, caring, and always eager to make their house a home, hosting dinners for clients and making sure Garrett's life ran smoothly. Patrick, his business partner and longtime friend, had been with him since college, sharing the same ambitions, building the company together, handling sales and partnerships while Garrett focused on development and operations. The three of them seemed like the perfect trio, bound by trust and mutual respect. Business trips were a routine part of Garrett's life. 2 or 3 times a month, he'd fly out to pitch proposals and close deals that kept the company thriving, and Melissa always sent him off with warm smiles and reassurance, never complaining about his absences. Life seemed flawless until one Tuesday afternoon, when Harold, Garrett's quiet and polite neighbor, rang the doorbell with a request that seemed harmless at first: a plan to install security cameras on his property to prevent cameras that would also capture part of Garrett's driveway. Garrett agreed, thinking nothing of it, prioritizing security over inconvenience. 2 weeks later, returning from a business trip, Garrett's life began to unravel in ways he never could have imagined. Harold arrived again, a USB drive in hand, his expression grave, revealing footage that would shatter every illusion of trust Garrett had ever held. What Garrett saw on that screen: Patrick arriving late at night, Melissa greeting him with warmth that had nothing to do with friendship. Secret embraces in the sanctuary of his own home left him hollow, stunned, and questioning everything. The man he had considered a best friend, the woman he had married and loved, the life he had built with careful planning and hard work, all of it, now threatened by a betrayal so intimate it cut deeper than any financial loss could. And yet, as Garrett watched the footage again and again, a cold clarity settled over him. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was a problem to solve, a strategy to execute. It was the moment that would change everything, not just personally, but professionally. What would you do if the people you trusted most had been deceiving you, hiding a secret in plain sight, captured by the eyes of a neighbor's camera? Garrett's story is one of betrayal, revelation, and ultimate justice, and what you are about to see is the full account of how a single USB drive exposed the shocking truth about his wife and business partner, setting in motion events that would destroy lives, restore order, and redefine loyalty forever. Ethan had always believed that life had been unusually kind to him. From humble beginnings, he had built a small tech firm that now employed dozens of people, each contributing to the smooth hum of a business that had become his pride and his identity. His home, a modern 2-story marvel, perched on a quiet suburban street, was a reflection of his hard work: glass windows that glimmered under the afternoon sun, stone accents that spoke of taste, and a meticulously maintained garden that suggested order and control. To Ethan, every corner of this house was more than aesthetic. It was a testament to the years he had spent building a life on his own terms. When he married Julia, he thought he had finally completed the puzzle. She was warm, charming, socially adept, always eager to host clients and friends, and seemingly dedicated to making their shared life comfortable. Her presence in his life felt effortless, her laughter a constant backdrop to his otherwise structured existence. Then there was Daniel, his business partner since college. Ambitious, charismatic, and sharp, Daniel had complemented Ethan perfectly. Where Ethan strategized and organized operations, Daniel handled sales and partnerships, often bridging the gap between vision and execution. Their professional chemistry was undeniable, and over the years, Daniel had become almost family. He frequented Ethan's home, joining weekend dinners, casual get-togethers, and even minor celebrations. Ethan had never suspected any complications in this delicate balance. Trust was implicit, almost unspoken, and he had always assumed loyalty was a given. Business trips were routine. Ethan spent multiple days each month traveling to negotiate contracts, pitch innovations, and secure deals that kept the company growing. Julia, ever understanding, would see him off with smiles, reassuring messages, and small gestures that made long flights and meetings tolerable. Nothing, Ethan believed, could disturb the equilibrium of his carefully constructed life. But life has a way of undermining certainty when least expected. One seemingly ordinary Thursday, a neighbor named Leonard, a retired engineer who was usually reserved and distant, approached Ethan's front door. Leonard's hands were tucked into the pockets of his cardigan, his eyes betraying slight unease. He explained that recent thefts in the neighborhood had prompted him to install security cameras around his property. Cameras that, due to the angle of his driveway, would inevitably capture part of Ethan's entrance. He asked politely for consent, not out of obligation but out of a desire to maintain neighborly transparency. Ethan, never suspecting a hidden storm, laughed and waved it off. Security was important, after all, and a neighbor taking precautions posed no harm. Leonard left, and Ethan soon forgot about the encounter entirely. 2 weeks later, Ethan returned from a grueling 3-day trip to close a high-stakes contract with a logistics company. The journey had been exhausting but fruitful. He parked in the garage, carried his suitcase, and was greeted by Julia's warm smile in the kitchen. Conversation was normal. Even comfortnya fragile returned to domestic normality after days on the road. But the fragility of normalcy is often the precursor to revelation. The following evening, Leonard appeared again, this time holding a small USB drive. His expression was grave, weighted with an urgency that Ethan had not seen before. He insisted that Ethan needed to view the footage. Something unsettling had been captured, something that had haunted Leonard, compelling him to intervene. Curiosity, mingled with unease, led Ethan to accept. They sat in the living room, the soft hum of the air conditioner punctuating the silence. Leonard inserted the USB into Ethan's laptop, and video files loaded, all time-stamped at night over the preceding 2 weeks. The first clip was innocuous. At first glance, the dimly lit driveway, the clock ticking past 11. Then, the unmistakable figure of Daniel's car appeared, gliding into the garage as though it belonged there. Julia emerged, her robe catching the light, a familiar smile adorning her face. The embrace that followed was unmistakable in its intimacy, far beyond the bounds of friendship. Each subsequent clip revealed the same pattern, always during Ethan's absences. A sequence of meetings that could only be described as clandestine. In one, Daniel lingered until the early hours of the morning. In another, Julia followed him out to the car, kissing him deeply before retreating inside. Ethan's chest tightened, a hollow ache replacing the initial shock. This was not just betrayal, it was a meticulous, repeated violation of trust that he had taken for granted. Leonard offered apologies, his voice hesitant, but Ethan's thoughts were elsewhere, calculating, methodical, as the pieces of deceit aligned before him. By the next morning, Ethan had devised a plan. He called an emergency meeting at the office, demanding full attendance without divulging the reason. The employees, accustomed to his careful management, complied without question. Daniel arrived early, greeting colleagues with casual confidence, oblivious to the storm about to descend. Ethan waited until every chair was filled, then dimmed the lights, the room falling into a heavy silence. The footage began to play. First one clip, then another. The intimate moments between Julia and Daniel displayed in stark clarity on the large projector screen. Gasps filled the room, mouths fell open, and a stunned stillness took over. Daniel's expression faltered. He attempted to interject, but Ethan's calm, unwavering voice silenced him. The betrayal was no longer hidden, and the audience of employees who had respected and trusted them both witnessed the full extent of deception. The revelation triggered a chain of actions that Daniel could not anticipate. Ethan had already arranged for a thorough forensic audit of the company's finances. Within 3 days, the audit exposed an intricate web of embezzlement, rerouted funds, fabricated invoices, falsified signatures, a sophisticated scheme that had siphoned hundreds of thousands from the company over nearly 2 years. Legal authorities were contacted, and Daniel was taken into custody, facing charges that promised significant prison time. Back at home, Ethan confronted Julia. The same footage was replayed on the living room screen, her face crumpling as the reality of exposure hit. Words spilled from her mouth, excuses about loneliness, justifications about attention, feeble attempts to soften the consequences, but Ethan was unwavering. The divorce papers had been prepared in advance, her share limited to temporary provisions. the home and assets firmly secured under his ownership. Her pleas fell on ears that had already processed betrayal and forged a path forward unclouded by sentiment. Over the following months, the aftermath unfolded with surgical precision. Ethan focused on rebuilding the company's operations, implementing stricter controls, vetting new personnel carefully, and nurturing the loyalty of employees who admired his strategic handling of the crisis. Julia relocated, starting anew without the comforts she had once taken for granted. Daniel faced imprisonment, restitution, and the erosion of his professional reputation. Life, as it had been known, had been irrevocably altered, but not for Ethan. Months later, a chance encounter in a local market revealed the profound transformation. Julia appeared worn and diminished by circumstance, while Ethan, steady and composed, acknowledged her existence with nothing more than a polite nod. The past had been catalogued, the chapter closed. Ethan returned home, his sanctuary intact, now imbued with lessons learned. Trust must be earned. Vigilance is essential, and technology when used as a tool of insight can reveal truths that reshape destinies. He reflected on Lena's role, recognizing that the neighbor's seemingly minor actions had altered the course of his life for the better. The cameras, silent and impartial, had not only documented betrayal, they had safeguarded the future. Ethan sat in his office that evening, planning expansion, envisioning new markets, and contemplating innovation in artificial intelligence, unburdened by deceit, fully aware that resilience and clarity had restored his world. Outside, the neighborhood was calm, the quiet hum of everyday life, continuing as usual. Yet within Ethan, the narrative of betrayal, exposure, and triumph had written itself indelibly, a testament to the transformative power of truth and the precise execution of justice. Ethan stood on the terrace of his home as the late afternoon sun bathed the neighborhood in a golden glow. The garden, recently landscaped, bore no trace of the turbulence that had once consumed his life. Every plant, every stone, and every path reflected meticulous care, a personal declaration that the chaos of betrayal had been swept away and replaced by order. He lifted a glass of wine, letting the warmth of it soothe the lingering sting of months past, and watched the quiet street below. The world appeared undisturbed, but Ethan knew how fragile the balance of trust could be, how a single hidden act could ripple outward and destroy lives. A familiar ringtone drew him from contemplation. It was Leonard, the neighbor whose courage had altered the course of events. They exchanged a few words, warm but brief, and Leonard remarked on how relieved he was to see Ethan had reclaimed his life with such poise. Ethan smiled faintly, acknowledging the truth in Leonard's words. Without the neighbor's vigilance, without that small but pivotal intervention, Ethan might still have been living a lie, paying the price for blind trust and deceit. The irony was not lost on him. Sometimes, the very things we dread most, the truths we hope to avoid, become the instruments that restore freedom and clarity. The evening progressed quietly. Inside the house, the faint hum of air conditioning and the soft ticking of clocks created a serene backdrop. Ethan moved through the rooms, noting the emptiness left by Julia's absence, a quiet reminder that some chapters close irrevocably. The divorce had been swift but orderly, each step a reflection of Ethan's meticulous planning and refusal to be derailed by emotion. Julia's departure, once a source of potential chaos, had become a symbol of necessary resolution. She had left, and with her, all the pretense and betrayal that had threatened his peace. Reflecting on the company, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The audit, though initially painful, had revealed not only the deceit but also provided a framework for stronger, more resilient operations. New systems were in place, employees were loyal and inspired by his measured approach, and the business had grown even in the aftermath of betrayal. Contracts were signed, projects flourished, and innovation was no longer hindered by the shadow of hidden fraud. Ethan understood, with the clarity only experience could provide, that success was not merely financial. It was the capacity to navigate adversity with intelligence and composure. Months later, a chance encounter in a local market underscored the stark contrast between past and present. Julia, once a presence of comfort and familiarity, appeared diminished, her former life of ease replaced by modesty and struggle. Ethan's acknowledgement was quiet, polite, and devoid of emotion. No anger, no bitterness. Only the firm understanding that some lessons are learned, not through confrontation, but through deliberate, unshakable action. Life had realigned itself. Justice had been served in both personal and professional realms, and Ethan's sovereignty over his own existence was unchallenged. As night descended, Ethan returned to his office to review expansion plans, ideas for new projects, and strategies for future growth. The calm of the house contrasted with the storm of weeks past, a tangible representation of resilience. Outside, the neighborhood remained serene, unaware of the drama that had quietly unfolded. Yet Ethan understood that the world often changes in ways unseen. The security cameras, once dismissed as minor precautions, had become instruments of revelation, impartial witnesses that had documented truth, guided action, and ultimately restored balance. He paused at the window, reflecting on trust, vigilance, and the consequences of betrayal. The experience had been painful, humbling, and instructive. He recognized the fragility of relationships, the importance of discernment, and the need to protect what truly matters not with suspicion, but with clarity, preparation, and decisive action. Ethan had emerged from betrayal stronger, more focused, and with a renewed vision for both life and business. The scars of deceit were present, but they were not wounds. They were markers of survival, evidence that he could endure adversity and flourish beyond it. Finally, as the camera of our story would linger on the house from across the quiet street, Ethan's figure is silhouetted against the warm interior lights, a man restored to his rightful place as master of his life. Leonard's house remains visible in the distance, a subtle reminder of how courage and awareness can alter destinies. The lesson is clear. Sometimes, the truths we fear are the very keys to freedom, and the smallest interventions can lead to the largest transformations. Ethan had learned this, and in doing so, had claimed not only his home, his business, and his peace, but also a profound understanding of resilience, judgment, and the true value of trust. As the story closes, the screen fades to the subtle Secret Zone branding. A calm, engaging voice encourages viewers to reflect on the tale, to consider vigilance in their own lives, and to subscribe for more stories where hidden truths emerge. Lives are transformed, and lessons are learned in the most unexpected ways. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next shocking story. Until next time, remember, sometimes the smallest cameras capture the biggest truths.